Clicks. C-L-I-C, clicks. Anyway, this is, as I told you earlier, all these programs I do, I put them up on my YouTube channel, so you can go back and watch them. This my Facebook page. If you do some apply, please friend me. All my books up on Amazon. I have a web page where you can get autographed ones as well. So, so here we are. We're going to end with the cover. We're going to end with the cover. So before we do that, we were at the Mary Museum of Regional History this week. It used to be the Mary Hardware Store. It was all leaves, hundreds of thousands of people in that area, and we had a big time there. I set up in the courtyard because it's too expensive to set up in the street anymore. It's outrageous. But they have a local trailer they carry around, and it's 4 floors. If you've never been there, I encourage you to go. It's one of the best little history museums you'll ever see for a town that size. It's, like I said, it's 4 floors, and it's CarolinaMuseum.org. And it's been there for about 25, 30 years now. Hey, you know, leaving me in here unchaperoned is dangerous. She's not listening. She's got a hearing aid. She hates it. I know y'all. So today we're gonna end this with one of the more popular murder stories in this area, the Hillsville Shootout of 1912. And this thing is always interested me, I think, because this is a very political murder. And I say that because what you had in Hillsville is you had a clique in the county seat that was all Republican, and the Allens who get involved in this thing are Democrats. And there's a lot of bad blood, and a lot of it is political in orientation. If you were like me and grew up in Patrick County, you would have had the opposite. You would have had a county seat that was very Democrat, and the county was very Republican. I don't know, there's not too many Democrats left in Patrick County now, but back then when I was a kid, the county seat was all these Southern Democrats, very conservative for the most part.
Democrats have a secret handshake.
Yeah, that's it. Well, Phil Clark is the one that comes to my mind. Yeah. Martin Clark's daddy, who was the Commonwealth Attorney for Patrick County, and he was a Democrat, but I would never say that Phil was liberal. He was a very conservative Democrat. But so you have the opposite here in Carroll, where all the movers and shakers are Republican, and the Allens, who we're going to talk about, are Democrats. And I wouldn't exactly say that any of them are exactly progressive in their outlook. But what you end up is you basically have two warring sides in this thing, and it really didn't matter what the evidence was in any case in this thing, because it would go the way the courthouse clique wanted it to go. And that's what the Allens really didn't like and got fed up with, and they got fed up to a level that they took matters into their own hands, resulting in the deaths of 5 or 6 people, and all kinds of angst still to this day in Carroll County. This is where it happened, in the courthouse building itself today. That's the Historic Society, and they opened it up as a little museum. They do plays in this courthouse. They do symposiums about this shootout in this courthouse. And they really, it's their thing. You know, like Mount Airy's got Andy Griffith. They got the shootout in 1912. Oops. So this is Floyd Allen here in the middle. This is his house. He lived down in Cana, down at the bottom of the mountain. And when I think of Floyd, I think of pride cometh before a fall. A lot of people are going to die and be wounded because Floyd Allen refused to go to jail because he was basically fed up with the politics of Carroll County. He was born in 1857. He had a bunch of brothers: Sidney, Anderson, Victor, Garland, Washington, and Jasper were all his brothers. And like I said, that's his house on the right there. Before and after shots is still base of the mountain, near the Mountain Man, if you know where the Mountain Man is on the But somebody described Floyd Allen, he's either your best friend or your worst enemy. Floyd actually shot one of his own brothers once when he got mad at him. So this is not a fella that you trifle with necessarily. But there's lots of books been written about this. We'll start off with the Red Ear Corn book by Bill Lord. I don't know that it's necessarily the best book. I'll show you the one I think is the best book on this. But this is how it all started. On December the 17th, 1910, they were holding a corn shucking at Herbert Easter's place, and he was a sister to Floyd in Sidney Allen. And Wesley Edwards, one of the nephews of Floyd Allen, he found a red ear of corn. And the custom was, and I never heard of this growing up, but apparently the custom was if you found a red ear of corn in the shucking, you got to kiss the girl of your choosing. Well, Wesley chose Rachel McCraw and kissed her, but her boyfriend, a fellow named William Thomas, didn't take too kindly to it. This happened like on a Saturday night, and he kissed her, and so begins the courthouse tragedy. What happens is the next day, a Sunday, they were having church services nearby at the Flint Hill School, and Garland Allen, another of Floyd's brothers, just one right after another, he was preaching that day, and Thomas, who was the grieved girl's boyfriend, along with his brother George, Bud Edwards, and Homer Leftwich, they came looking for Wesley Edwards, and apparently there was a little fisticuffs and violence occurred at the church service. This is, 1910 Carroll County, after all. And the next thing you know, and here's the political side of this, indictments came down for the nephews of Floyd Allen, but not for the Thomas boys. So only the Edwards boys, who were the Allen's nephews, were indicted. So a lot of people see that as being political. The Edwards brothers quickly went to Mount Airy to go to work at the granite quarry and hid out down there for about 4 months. Many people believe that this was the opportunity that the clique in the courthouse wanted to use to get back at the Allens for various reasons. And the district attorney, the Commonwealth attorney, was a fellow named William McDonald Forrester, and he wanted to get even. And so he had these two boys indicted, and they were eventually arrested. And he goes, here's Dexter Goad, who's the clerk of court, the Republican, and Floyd Allen, and these two had a long history of not liking each other. Dexter and Floyd, it goes back as much as a decade. Apparently, Floyd Allen said of Dexter Goad, he said there was never an opportunity that Goad had to do me wrong that he did not take advantage of. They had turned each other in for this and that and the other things over the years, and there was a lot of bad blood in this thing because the Allens held political positions and Goad and his cronies held political positions, and of course they're trying to get each other out so they can get back into the job and power. Power corrupts, I guess, although I can't imagine how much power one would have in Carroll County, Virginia. But old Dexter there, he's going to be sitting in the courtroom the day that the shootout happens, and he and Floyd are going to be two of the survivors of this shootout, but they both are going to be shot at or shot multiple times. Sidney Allen, who was Floyd's brother, said that this little ring of courthouse Republicans hated us bitterly, and with us out of the way, it would be easier for them to run things, or so they said. So the two Edwards boys are down in North Carolina working, and they finally figured out where they were, and they arrested on April the 10th, 1911. So remember, this starts in 1910, now we're in 1911. And they were arrested by the sheriff of Surrey County and two Carroll County deputies. I love this. Thomas Pinky Samuels and another guy were sent down to pick them up, and they met them at the state line. Now I don't think there's any evidence that there was any extradition papers or anything. This is just bring them to the line, and you pick them up. So they met him at the state line, and the two Edwards boys, who are Wesley and Sidna, this gets very confusing because they all have the same names. The only thing that's different is the last names. So Wesley and Sidna are Floyd and Sidna Allen's nephews, if you're following me. And here's a picture of everybody. I don't know if you can make out the names too well, but this is, that's Sidna, that's Floyd, and these are the Edwards boys, Victor Allen, and Martin. These fellows are either brothers or nephews and uncles. So they all are related to each other. So Pinky goes down to the state line, and he puts these guys in a buggy that would hold 4 people, but he ties them up and handcuffs them. And instead of taking a route back up to Hillsville that might have been a little less provocative, he decides to ride them by the homes of every one of their family members. And among these is Floyd Allen, who was at his brother Sidney's house, which is up on top of the mountain there. If you've ever seen it, we'll show you pictures of it. But they bring them right by all the Allen brothers' homes. And Pinky, I just want to say that, Pinky had been warned, not to do this. And Pinky said, I'm a deputy, I'll go wherever I want. Well, it's a Thursday morning, and Floyd Allen stops him right there in front of Sidney's house. Sidney had a store that's no longer there, but was near his home today. And he thought that his nephews were being humiliated by the way they were being treated. They just got in a fight over a girl, and now they're handcuffed and tied in a wagon or a buggy. And he thought that they were being humiliated and shackled over a misdemeanor, he said. So Pinky apparently drew his gun on Floyd. Never a good thing to do, I might add. And Floyd quickly took it away from him and broke it over a rock, and then he struck Pinky upside the head with what was left of the gun. And Floyd took the boys away from him and said, I'll bring them in myself tomorrow. This is just, not the way you treat my family, yada, yada, yada. And to his word, Floyd brought them in the next day under a little less violent circumstances. And Wesley got 60 days for, quote, disturbing a public worship service. And his Sidna, the other one, got 30 days on the same charge. Neither one of the Thomas boys were charged anything in all of this. So Pinky filed charges against Floyd for, quote, maiming and assault and the rescue of prisoners. Deputy Samuels, apparently, though, was warned or was told by somebody that this might not be the wisest thing he ever did, and Pinky pretty much disappears out of Carroll County and was never seen again, apparently. But that didn't stop them from prosecuting, because now they had Floyd on something, and they were going to prosecute him for what he did to get his nephews free. The trial gets postponed and put off, and finally it's March 1912. They're going to try Floyd Allen in the Carroll County courthouse. Judge Thornton Massey, he was from up in Pulaski. The judge had been warned that he should clear the courtroom of all weapons, but he didn't think that was necessary. Obviously, the judge had never met Floyd Allen before, and he had 3 children, and like I said, he lived up in Pulaski. So the day of the 12th, they convened this trial after lunch, and there were 21 witnesses, but no Pinky. Pinky still wasn't showing up. And he told the Commonwealth Attorney Foster, told the jury to take courage and do their duty in relieving the county of this mob violence, which had reigned for 15 or 20 years, talking about the Allens. The night of March 13th, Floyd stayed at Sidney's house at the top of Fancy Gap, so he didn't have to go all the way back down the mountain and come back up. The next day is Thursday, the 14th of March, 1912. It was not a particularly pleasant day, and I'm about to tell you it's about to turn a lot gloomier. Here's the courtroom today. It's not quite as big as it was, I believe, when this actually happened. It was a little larger. But today, it's like I said, it's owned by the Historical Society. They operate a museum, and you can go in there and look around. But this is the actual room where all this is about to happen. The jury reached a guilty verdict on Floyd and sentenced him to 1 year in prison. There was no fine. Floyd Allen had been arrested many times over the years, but he never once had spent any time in jail. And Floyd was, the sheriff come toward him with a deputy, and Floyd pronounced to them, "Gentlemen, I ain't a going." And at that moment, we don't know if the sheriff had pulled his gun and he kind of fumbled it and dropped it and it went off. Some people even think that maybe that they had a fire going in the wood stove in the courtroom, and maybe it sparked and made a big pow. We don't know what happened because Walter Cronkite was not there, if you remember that show. And the next thing you know, all hell breaks loose in this courtroom. People start shooting at each other. Everybody is packing. And I'll just tell you how it worked. Judge Massey's sitting up here. Dexter Goad is right here. Floyd and his lawyer are down here. Sidney and his nephew are sitting over here. There are Allens in the back of the courthouse. The sheriff is coming from this way. The jury is over here. And all of a sudden, well, you can tell what's going on. Dexter's right here and he's shooting. And Sidney is over here and he's shooting, and they're shooting at each other. The judge is dead. Because he's right in the crossfire between Dexter Goad and Sidney Allen, who's right there. Floyd, of course, everybody's shooting at Floyd. The sheriff is walking here, he's shot dead. There's a woman in the jury box, she is shot. There's going to be at least 57 shots fired in this little room in the course of, let me tell you, I forget exactly how it was, but we don't know what actually happened. Dexter Goad gets shot through the mouth, goes right through his mouth, knocks his teeth out. Floyd is shot so many times, I can't even believe that he survived this, but he does. He survives all this. He actually lands on his lawyer. His lawyer starts screaming for him to get off because you're going to get me killed. We think that Sidney probably is the one who killed the judge. We think his nephew Claude is the one who killed the sheriff. And again, everybody is shooting at Floyd. Floyd is shot in the leg and back, just all kinds of things. Floyd pulls out his gun and starts shooting. They all are emptying their guns here. A lot of them had, interesting enough, 32 caliber guns, which you don't see much anymore. They're still there, but I actually went to a symposium in this room where they talked about every bullet, every gun that was fired this day. We had a great time. That was like 2012. We had a symposium in this room, and we talked about every single shot. Sidney Edwards, who's one of the other nephews, ran to the railing and was just about to pull his gun to shoot until his mother, Alberta, Floyd's sister, grabbed his arm and stopped him before he ruined his life, she said. Floyd grabs Sidney's gun, his nephew's gun, Sidney Edwards, and pistol, and runs out into the street where he's continuing to shoot back at the courthouse. We think that Friel Allen shot the Commonwealth attorney and killed him. Claude Allen shot at Goad and Webb and probably killed the juror. And so you just cannot imagine. This all happens in just a span of just a very short time. And in this little bitty room right here, I just cannot imagine how not everybody didn't get killed in this room at this point. One of my favorite stories, here's the bullet holes still in the courthouse steps. If you look up and down the steps, there's bullet holes everywhere. Ron Hall, who I think wrote the best book about this, had a relative. His name was Curtis Hall, and Curtis jumped out a window and was running to get away from all of this. Just ran into an apple tree at full speed, looking back, not paying any attention where he was going. And when they asked him if he ran Paul said, no, but I passed a lot of people who were.
Who were those people that were, the pictures on the previous picture? Who were those? Are those the Allens?
These are the Allens
Okay.
and their relatives. So you got nephews, you got Sidney and Floyd, and these are the nephews. I think these two guys are nephews, these two guys are nephews. Victor's a brother. Victor's kind of a mean looking dude, and Martin, who I think is brother-in-law. So there they are. This is actually a postcard that people started selling over this to make money. You know, have a big thing like this happen. People making money off everything. This is actually a postcard of the Allens that people sold.
What about in the courthouse, those pictures that were up on the desk, are they the ones that were on?
Yeah, that's just during the play and symposium, they just had pictures of them there. They just had some of the same pictures you saw on the postcard there. This is like when the symposium we had, they had a projector like I've got now and stuff. Usually all this would be, you know, like up there where the screen is, where the judge actually would sit. And like I said, extra good, sit right there. Jury box is right here. Sidney Allen and his nephew are sitting right there. Interesting positioning, I think, if you stop and think about this. Remember, they all come in this morning knowing he's probably going to get convicted and knowing that Floyd is not going to go. So there may have been some planning about where to sit so that they get them in the crossfire. They get them in the crossfire. Now, I don't believe that carrying concealed was legal at this point. I think only officers of the law can carry a concealed weapon. You can open carry a gun. I guess you can do that today. You can open carry a gun. Everybody's packed. That's the point I'm trying to make here. And this is going to erupt in 90 seconds. It's 90 seconds, 57 shots in 90 seconds. A minute and a half, all this occurs. So people are jumping out windows, people are jumping, there's people falling back into the back room here and falling over and dying. I mean, it is just a mess. The courthouse room, people coming back up this alley and going out the front door. Floyd goes out the front door. He's shot all to pieces, but he's still shooting. Dexter, like I said, sitting right there, he gets shot right through his mouth. He goes right through his mouth. He immediately sends a telegraph to Governor of Virginia, Thomas Mann. He's saying, you need to send troops to Carroll County. We've got mob violence erupting here.
How many people did you say were?
Five killed. One juror, the sheriff, the judge, I believe the Commonwealth attorney. And it's interesting, I don't really think any of the Allens, none of the Allens seem to die from this. It's just the court people and innocent bystanders. Like the woman was in the jury box, I believe.
Was it the woman that didn't think that she was shot or something?
Yeah, and she just collapsed.
And died.
And a lot of them don't die immediately. A lot of them they carry to other buildings and they'll die the next day. But most of the Allens, they said, went down Jail Alley, which is beside the courthouse here. They got on their horses, but Floyd was so badly wounded, he couldn't do it. So one of his nephews kind of stood over him to protect him, and they got him. I think they took him to the hotel that day, and obviously he was going to be arrested. 1912 now, there's no Virginia State Police. So what they do is they call the Baldwin Phelps detectives, and they ask for the National Guards. The Baldwin Phelps detectives are the guys who break up the miners' strikes. So they're not exactly, they have an agenda. They're a little biased themselves. So that's who's called in. This turns into a huge manhunt for the Allens who get away. And you'll see in just a second, Sidney and his nephew are going to escape and are gone for months. They went all the way to Iowa to get away from this. Floyd, though, was caught, and they got him. So anyway, this becomes sensationalized in the papers like you wouldn't believe. It's all in the New York Times. This is Ron Hall's book, which I think is absolutely the best one on this. Ron calls it the courthouse tragedy. I will tell you that Ron, who I know well, is a Democrat. So he's pro-Allen. I mean, even in the books in this thing, they're still taking sides, I think. Now, the book is good, but I will tell you, if you read it, remember, my buddy Ron is a Democrat. So he's pro-Allen. He calls it the tragedy, or as I call it, the shootout. You see the difference here. And again, here's the postcard that you can buy. These things, I think, you can still collect them. But like I said, Sidney Allen and his nephew Wesley, they hide out for about a month. They went all the way to Winston-Salem, apparently walking. They got on the train, and they went to Asheville, and ended up in Des Moines, Iowa, where they lived in Lucille Cameron's boarding house. They worked as carpenters out in Iowa, and keep it on the down low, because, they went for things to cool down a little bit, because they've been shooting up the courthouse, and you can imagine that the blood was pretty hot. Now, this is on the front page of all the newspapers all over the country. All these hillbillies are shooting up each other and killing each other. And then she wouldn't let him on the board, and the Titanic sunk. And that took it off the newspapers, off the front page. Poor Kate Winslet. The poor woman to this day still gets harassed about, why wouldn't you let Leo up on the door? I've seen interviews, I just think this is funny. I've seen interviews where Leo and Brad Pitt, they did this movie once a time in Hollywood about how they killed the Manson family. It's a kind of a fairy tale kind of thing. And the reporters asked Leo, could you got on that door? And he absolutely refuses to answer the question to this day. He's like, it's a movie, it's fiction, it's not real. But this is what gets the Hillsville Shootout off the front page, is the Titanic sinks a month later. And just to give you some idea of how big a story this was, it took the Titanic to get this off the front pages of the New York newspapers, not to mention the other. So there's a big reward for the ones who get away. This is Sidney and Wesley, who have escaped to Iowa. And like I said, they were seen selling postcards. The New York Times, and you think we had fake news today, they had fake news then too. This is one story. I'll just read some of the lines from some of these newspapers. A troop of desperados rode down from the Blue Ridge Mountain to the Carroll County Courthouse and opened fire as officials were sentencing Floyd Allen. Floyd drew himself up to his full height and killed Judge Massey himself. Well, I think Sidney's the one that probably killed Judge Massey. This was the most horrible and dastardly blow at civilization in the history of Virginia. But old Wesley here, in June 1912, he comes on back to Carroll County because he wants to see Maud, his girlfriend, Maud Iroller, right here she is. And he gave her $50, and I told her to come on out to Iowa when you get a chance and marry me. Well, Maud, she comes to Des Moines, Iowa with her daddy and a bunch of detectives. They arrest Sidney and Wesley. And she kept this a secret apparently for years and didn't really ever tell anybody that she had been involved in the capture until 1957. That's how long before she ever would admit to this. Most people, I think, that her father's the reason that they went out to get him, because he wanted that reward money. I don't necessarily know that she is the guilty party here. I think it's her father. You can just imagine it's $500 to get them. Yeah. And Paul might not have any say in it. Her daddy might have been the reason they go out and get Sidney. So they bring him back. They bring these two fellas here back. And they have all the trials up in Hillsville because, Carroll County, there's no way they can have a trial there. And Floyd and his nephew Claude Allen are sentenced to death. Sidney is going to get 35 years, who is here. Wesley is going to get 27 years. Another nephew, Sidney Edwards got 18 years, and he apparently pled guilty to second-degree murder, even though he didn't fire a shot in the courtroom that day. His mother feared he was going to get the death penalty, and he talked him into pleading guilty, even though he hadn't fired a shot that day. Another nephew, Friel, got 18 years in prison, and Victor, apparently he had, I don't know if he helped Baldwin Felsen detectives, but he had negotiated and he didn't get any time. The other thing though that happens here, like it would today, is civil cases. You wouldn't think about in 1912 civil cases erupting over something like this, but Virginia pretty much seized all of Floyd and Sidney Allen's property. And there were wrongful death lawsuits. Judge Massey's estate apparently got Floyd's land. Estimated Sidney's place was estimated to be worth $40,000 in 1912 money. The wives and the children were evicted from the property, and interestingly enough, no autopsies were performed in these cases, so we don't know for sure who shot who in this case. Bullets became souvenirs instead of evidence. Floyd and his nephew Claude here were put to death on March the 28th, 1913. Floyd went first in the penitentiary in Richmond, and Claude went a few minutes later. Floyd got 2,000 volts of electricity. His brother Jack picked up their bodies at the train station in Mount Airy. They had funerals at Floyd's house there at the foot of the Blue Ridge. And this is their graves, which are down at the camp, again, close to the mountain man, where the mountain man is. And supposedly, for years, it said on their graves that sacred to the memory of Claude Allen and Floyd Allen, who were judiciously murdered in the state penitentiary on March 20, 1913 by the governor of the state over the protests of 100,000 citizens of the state of Virginia. Today, reportedly, that was removed and is underneath this stone because they made a deal to get Wesley and Sidney pardoned. And one of the things they agreed to do was to change this so that it didn't say the state murdered them. But they all eventually get out. Friel Allen, he moved to California. Victor moved to New Jersey. Sidney worked as a foreman, who had worked as a foreman in the state penitentiary. He had developed this thing of making furniture. Very, very ornate furniture. And his furniture, he went around after he got out and sold his furniture from a wagon. And this stuff is highly prized today. The Historic Society in Carroll has pieces of it. It's very, very ornate. In 1926, Sidney is pardoned by guess who? Harry Byrd, a Democrat. In 1926, he moved to Eden, North Carolina, and he later would move back to Mount Airy. And he, like I said, he took his furniture around and sold it. He also wrote a book, a memoir about all this, and you can still get a copy of that. And he sold them too. Sounds familiar. But like I said, the Carroll County Historic Society has a lot of Sidney's furniture. It's very highly praised, very ornate stuff. Very ornate stuff.
Didn't he use scrap wood that they would let him have?
Yeah, I think so, when he was in prison.
It was, because they're all different colors. It's beautiful.
Yeah,
Beautiful.
I think that's true.
Beautiful.
I think that's true. But like I said, he carried around in a wagon, sold his books, sold his furniture. That's how he made a living. This, of course, is Sidney's house, which the Historic Society got several years ago, and I think they've put in something along the lines of $250,000 to refurbish this house. And believe it or not, this is an older picture. You can see they actually picked this house up with a crane and redid the foundation. And I wrote up there, and that was the wildest thing you ever saw. That house just hanging there in midair. It's got stained glass windows. They've redone it now. Look at I think the front of my book has the new picture of it. But they, just like I said, spent probably $250,000 to to say this house is Queen Anne style, like they call it. And here's some of the web pages. Then they open it up like when they do the Hillsville Flea Market. They'll open this house up because you got Memorial Day and Labor Day. And they open it up other times too. But you can go through it now. They're in the process of redoing the interior. The exterior looks good. It really looks good now. But they've really put a lot of money into it. They almost waited too long. They couldn't get it away from the families, you know, who owned it at the time they did. And now it looks really, really good. I actually will not give them a cut off every one of those books because I typically put their house on the cover. Well, I'm going to end this with something where you might not realize. That's Jasper Jack Allen, and he married a lady named Katie Easter, had 12 children. He's ended up going to get shot himself and killed in I think 1916. He had a son, Barnett, and he had a daughter named Herman. And Herman married this fellow named Raymond Beamer. And Herman's son was this guy, Old Frank, the head coach at Virginia Tech. One of the winningest football coaches in college football history. And if you go to Fancy Gap area, you'll see it's Frank Beamer country, because that's where he lived, right there where you come off 77 and come over to the access road to 52. That's where Frank grew up. But Frank said that his mother would never talk about this. You know, the Allens, they would never talk about it. And he said that when he got to Virginia Tech, that he had to write a paper and give a speech. And he chose this as the topic. And he finally got his mother to talk to him about what happened. And I'll leave this part with what Frank actually said in his book. He wrote a book called Let Me Be Frank. He said, the main thing, I always knew that there are two sides to every story. Certainly a bunch of people getting shot in the courthouse, that doesn't need to happen, regardless of which side of the story you're on. And sadly, Frank, when he's at Virginia Tech, would learn about shooting, I'm afraid, another way in April 2005, which is what starts and ends my book, if you read my book, you know, the shootings at Virginia Tech. But anyway, that's Frank's great-granddaddy, or granddad, Jack, who was not in the shootout, but ended up being killed by violence himself a few years later. This is old Frank Levering himself. Frank has written several plays about this, and they put it on to raise money for the house, for the Sidney Allen house. And here's the symposium there in the courtroom. They had this in 2012, and I just had surgery for prostate cancer. And the first thing I did after my surgery was I went to this symposium, and you got me out of the house. So I've always kind of had an interest in this thing. So Frank actually runs a little thing called the Cherry Orchard Theater, which is in literally this cherry orchard up on the Ward's Gap, Orchard Gap Road, coming out of Mountain area. And they've got a new play coming out for Halloween called The Horror. Don't know what that's about, but I'm sure it's Halloween related. But like I said, they run these plays, they do sell out. They have it in the courtroom where it actually happened, and they reenact this thing right there in front of them. And one thing I will tell you, I encourage you to go and support them. But if you go, those are the worst seats you ever sat on in your life. Make sure you take a cushion with you because they are horrible. It's horrible. So, and this weekend I'm going to be at Mayberry Trade Post. If you're around, it's Pancake Days Mezzanines on Sunday, so come on up and visit us. As I will tell you, Andy Griffith, I believe, used to come in this building as a little boy, and I think that's where he got the name Mayberry from. I really believe that. I can tell you why if you really want to know. But I always go up there during the Pancake Days, and we have a good time. It's 125 something like that. And Pamela owns it, her family is the original owners, so it's back in the family that originally built it. And we have a great time, they have music, they have crafts up there on the weekends, so I encourage you to come up there if you're not doing anything the next couple of weekends. And of course, you should always go to Pancake Days, because that's, Dan raises a lot of money for the community doing that. I go every year. I enjoy it immensely. So that ends murder in a rearview mirror, ladies. Literally in a rearview mirror. And I appreciate you very much coming out here and listening to me go on and on about all this stuff. But like I said, this book, I use it, I give them a little cut off of it, so we've helped them raise a couple $1,000 for the book. Of the thousands that they have spent to try to save this house. So Sid Allen himself didn't really get to live in that house very long. He started it about 1911, and then the shootout happens, and eventually his family loses it because of the civil cases and things. And he really didn't get to live in his house, but it is a beautiful, beautiful thing to see. And like I said, there's all the ways to get a hold of me if you need to. And all these talks will be up on YouTube here in a few more days when I get a chance to upload them. So does anybody have any questions about the Hillsville Shootout or anything else?
This was one of the COA's trips a couple of years ago on the Friday. They took us to the courthouse. And, what is her name,
Shelby in score bucket.
Yes, she gave us the tour of the courthouse, and then, we went over, to the house, that's in the Allen house. And I'm sure they've done a lot more than what they did back then, and it is phenomenal. Just,
Yeah, it really is. They've done a massive amount of work, and so they opened it up. I know they opened it up on Labor Day, Memorial Day, whenever the big flea market is in Hillsville. But they open it up other times. Get up on their web pages, and you can see all that. But you know, it's one of the things they.
What did Sidney Allen do for a living, maybe to afford this house?
Well, he had a store. Sidney had quite a life. He went to the Klondike in Alaska for gold rushes. He had only been back in Carroll County a few years when all this erupts. He had actually traveled, I think he'd been to Hawaii. He went all over there. He went all over the world, Sidney, and he came back right a few years before this happened. He ran a store. The Allens were very good at making money from everything I've seen and read. They were very good businessmen. But like I said, there was a store right here, I think, in front of this house. And that's where the deputy Pinky brought the boys, and no doubt he did that deliberately because he knew they would be there, or some of them would be there. And they were trying to provoke them. I think there's not a lot of doubt that they were trying to provoke them into doing something, so they could then put them on trial. It's all about politics. Like Frank said, there's two sides to every story. But
What happened to the wives and children?
well, they lost. A lot of them ended up, I think, there are brothers, you understand, who were not in the shootout.
Yeah.
So I think they probably ended up taking care of a lot of them. But they, in the plays Frank has done, Sidney's wife is a very prominent character. She goes on about what happened to her. You know, they have a hard time. They've lost everything because of this. And you know, I don't think it's ever a good idea to start murdering people, because he got like a year in prison, and he absolutely refused to go. And so they shot up the courthouse, killed 5 people, lost everything they had, all because of his pride that he wasn't going to jail. And, you know, obviously I think they set him up. But a year in prison is not a lot when you're gonna lose everything you got. You're gonna lose your life. You know, 5 other people lost their lives. And so, you know, Floyd Allen maybe should have rethought that thing a little bit before he started doing it. It's amazing. He didn't get killed. I don't know how he survived all this because he got shot all to pieces. I love his lawyer. His lawyer's like, get off me, you're going to get me killed. But gentlemen, I ain't a-going. And then it starts. Like I said, that's pride goeth before a fall, I guess. Anything else? Thank y'all. I appreciate you coming. But like I said, this will be up on the YouTube if you want to watch it. Or if anybody you know who wasn't here today, they can watch it up on the YouTube.
Are you still selling your books?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. I'll sign it for you if you'd like.
Oh, okay.
Have I told y'all my Barbara Eden story? Barbara Eden showed up at Mayberry Days once, and she charged $50 for her autograph.
Oh my goodness.
She'd been on one episode of the Andy Griffith Show. She charged $50 for her autograph. What are we, 15th?
Today is the 15th, I think.
Yeah, close enough.
I think so.
And who's it for?
Oh, for me, Marion,
I
M-A-R-I-O-N.
understand that, you know, today I said, Mike, I'm leaving at 9:30, I will see you
Thank you.
at 5.
Lord, she's running me off. Look at this.
No, I just barged in and wanted to look at the art.
I just wanted to see, I told her she had to see this door.
Anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. I gave you a 20. Are they 10 or?
No, they're 20.
They're 20.
They're
Okay.
20.
Thank you.
Thank you. But my joke was I didn't dream of Jeannie that much.
Yeah.
I didn't dream of Jeannie that much.
Did any of the cast members come this year?
A few come, there's not many left.
No.
You're not leaving, are you?
There just ain't
I got
many
fresh
left.
cake downstairs and tea and
But I asked somebody, I said, you know, who she thinks she is, Willie Mays?
Well, maybe it's one. I don't know. I'm so bad.
Prepare for cricket.
You gonna stay? Or you-
I'll speak to her if she's around.
You gotta go downstairs and have a piece of hot warm cake.
Well, I might do that. But cricket and Robert, they do a bang up job on that elder chair. They really do.
Well, I'm gonna have to go because
They really do a bang up job.
now the guy that works with him, Graves Anthony,
Yeah.
his parents and my sister and her husband are